be happy to. Uh, Brett went into the bathroom?
I think he left.
Oh, okay. Today's talk is on the Kuta Sutta, also known as the Sutta about the good roof. As you hear me say, maybe every class, this is a complete teaching. When you understand the overarching context of what the Buddha taught, you'll understand how it fits. But this sutta talks specifically about the importance and the benefits gained from regaining control, or maybe gaining control of our minds. Let me read the sutta. On one occasion, Anathapindika went to the Buddha, bowed with respect for his teacher, and sat to one side. The Buddha, acknowledging his benefactor, instructed him in the Dhamma. When unrestrained, the mind has no protection. From a mind lacking protection, it follows that the body is unprotected, and so verbal and mental actions are unprotected, an uncomfortable and disappointing abode. So just that line, restraint, people have difficulty with. They don't want to hear it. Nobody wants to feel like they have to restrain themselves, or maybe more significant is nobody wants to feel like they're being restrained from something, even their own Dhamma practice. But this really is the heart of the matter. It's realizing that because of our ignorance of the way things truly are, we have, in a real sense, we've lost control of our minds, meaning we're always grasping after things that satisfy us, and always in an underlying concern of things that might take away from our satisfaction. In other words, a preoccupation with dukkha. And it's because of that preoccupation based on a misunderstanding of the nature of human life that we literally lose our minds. And another more mild term for that is just a constant state of distraction, whether we realize it or even accept it. It's really true. People characterize that in different ways. Usually is, I can't quiet my mind. I have this monkey mind. Again, that's just a description of a mind that is constantly seeking distraction, a mind that has lost control of itself. And so the Buddha's Dhamma begins with recognizing that, and then giving us a systematic and rather simple, meaning simple to follow, not necessarily easy to integrate, a simple to follow path to regain control of our thinking by establishing ourselves in reality. Now, think about that for a minute. That's the brilliance of a Buddha. He understood that if we aren't established in what's really occurring, there's no way that we can be thinking clearly or have control of our minds. So he first said, your mind, you're distracted. He gave us a meditation method specifically to counteract a distracted mind. It deepens concentration. And then he gave us a framework, a complete framework, to change the way we think, to go from a wrong view, a corrupted view, a fabricated view of who we are in relation to the world, to a view of ourselves in relation to the world that is based completely in reality, the way things are, the way things occur. The Buddha continues. So I think this is just a great metaphor. Just as when a house is poorly roofed, the house is unprotected. The beams, the walls, the floors all become soggy. The house is an uncomfortable and disappointing abode, as opposed to a comfortable and satisfying abode from someone who has regained control of their thinking. In the same manner, from an unrestrained mind, lacking protection, one's bodily, verbal, and mental actions get soggy. I loved it. Get soggy and become an uncomfortable and disappointing abode. Refined mindfulness has no lodging, and the opportunity for an auspicious life is lost. Again, a pretty powerful statement. Unless we take the steps necessary, walk the Eightfold Path to regain control of our life is going to be a series of disappointments. The most clear description of the meaning of dukkha is just that, disappointment. But it's an ongoing disappointment. It's a lack of contentment moment by moment within our lives. And so the Buddha describes an awakened human being in very simple terms. Their mind is calm and they are released from clinging to wrong views, content with what's occurring. And think about the profundity of that. And I know you that have been meditating and developing this, you've had periods of time where you were purely content. Is that true?
Mm-hmm.
And it's you can't put a price tag on it, can you?
Mm-hmm.
And it's up to and you've developed it yourself. You did the work and you developed your own peaceful, calm, content mind. I think that's marvelous that we are able to do that, and we were given teachings on how to do that 2,600 years ago, and they're still here right now. These are the same words through translation that the Buddha taught 2,600 years ago. Friends, just as when a house is properly roofed, the house is protected. The beams, the walls, the floors won't rot. This house is a comfortable and content abiding. When restrained, the mind is protected. When the mind is protected, bodily, verbal, and mental actions are also protected. A comfortable and content abiding is present. Refined mindfulness is well established, and the opportunity for an auspicious life is present. That's the end of today's sutta. Wasn't that marvelous?
Mm-hmm.
So what's required for an auspicious life?
Having a good roof.
Yeah.
Very good. And how do we build a good roof?
Concentration.
And
Yeah.
and not to be too cute, although I've been told I'm very cute. Not to be too cute. That's it. That's the Dhamma. We can go from a mind that is prone to distraction, confusion, discontent, disappointment, all the way up to the extreme examples of hurtful human behavior. Or we can take and develop this simple path, this peaceful path, and develop a peaceful quality of mind.
I think the best part of the metaphor is the sake.
Isn't it great?
Because
Well,
it's foggy, and what this practice provides is clarity.
Yep.
And without it, I remember the ones that we had 3 or 4 different, like a mirage, smoke, trick. And the clarity is what's cutting through all that.
Yes. Yep. And the metaphor for me is even more significant. For many, many years, I was in the construction business, but primarily roofing and siding and primarily roofing. And so I got to see firsthand the importance of a good roof. And even a minor little crack in the roof system, eventually you're going to lose your whole house. And so the metaphor still holds. And what the Buddha's using the metaphor for is to show the importance of a well-focused Dhamma practice. If we, it's an eightfold path. It's not a one-fold path, meaning just meditation. And it's not just a moral path, meaning just the middle, the right view, right speech, right action, and right livelihood. It's a complete path that takes us from that wrong view, a distracted view, to a view that sees every moment without any conflict at all in its mind. Things are just as they are, completely accepting. Another word for that is radical acceptance, and that's something that the Buddha taught. He taught that it's foolish to not accept everything as it occurs. Why? Simply because it's occurring. It can't be any different than it is. And the next thought of a mind that is always grasping is, well, let me do something to make it better. Let me get 2 pieces of chocolate cake rather than 1. A silly example, but that's where that distraction comes in, rather than being completely present with life as life occurs. And practicing restraint, we've talked a lot about that. I know, Tim, you might not have heard this recently, or Amy, but you did in the past. The Dhamma is practiced at the point of contact with what's occurring, meaning right now, what I'm holding in mind is going to determine my life experience. And if what I'm holding in mind is a view that is framed by the Eightfold Path, there's nothing that can occur that can shake my concentration and my calm and peaceful mind. Again, that's what the Buddha is talking about. And we can regain that or gain that ability very simply and very directly. And again, I'll ask you, you've felt that you've gained at least a measure of regaining control of your thinking, your minds, yes?
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that remarkable?
Mm-hmm.
I think it is. So let's go around. Eva, good to see you this morning.
Wonderful to be here.
And I should say, anybody feels like they don't want to talk, just practice noble silence and pass. You don't have to talk here.
I'm always amazed at how it seems like whatever you're reading or the sutta is about seems to so much be exactly what I happen to be experiencing at the time. I don't know how that works, but it does so often that,
Yeah.
it's amazing. And it's true that it just constantly, something happens and it's okay, so what do I do now? And sometimes there's just, I frustrate myself because it's like, okay, well, if I do this, then that happens. Then I do that, and then I'm back in the same place and I just wasted all this time and I've been agitated and frustrated. I've been agitated lately. And it's just like the only really true thing that I could do is to be harmless within myself and try to emanate that and not create negative ripples around me. And that's just where I'm at right now. Thank you so much.
And it works. And so you just described practicing restraint when things arise. You bring up an important point. Recognizing that you have lost your mind, you've gotten agitated, isn't bad. There's no reason to judge yourself harshly. In fact, it's just another opportunity to do just what you did. Practice restraint right here, right now. You can go through a whole day where you've been agitated all day. You've lost your mind all day. And you go and you sit at the end of the day. It's an opportunity to regain your thinking. That's Dhamma practice. It's not that you're doing something wrong because you're agitated for a little bit. You're doing everything right by recognizing the eye making and practicing restraint at that point. Not keeping it going, not letting the agitation affect your whole evening or the next day or the rest of your life. It's just like that. We're doing something. We've been given a very direct method of interrupting the nature of suffering. And it interrupts it between our ears. Where else could it happen? Where else could it take place? But the way we think about ourselves in relation to the world. Thank you. Good morning, Juan.
Morning. I think this sutta's made me realize just how you can depend on the Dharma as you go about life. You have that roof that the Buddha's talking about here, that you build the roof and you can begin to depend on it and rely on it day to day, moment to moment, really.
Yeah.
As you just go about your day. And I think I've just reflected on that, reading the sutra, and you're reading today, that you really can't, and it becomes second nature. It becomes not difficult, or less difficult.
Yeah.
So you just can depend on the Dharma more and more in your thinking, and it gives you that protection against what life can throw at you sometimes.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, and it's complete protection, isn't it? No matter what life throws at you, if you have control of your mind and you know how to view what's occurring, you don't lose your mind again. And again, it's just that way. Thank you. Anthony, good to see you this morning.
I was, excuse me, I was struck by how profound the wisdom is in connecting the mind, the feelings, and the body, because that's something that's just becoming established in the medical field, but yet 2,600 years ago, the Buddha recognized that what you think affects how you feel, and it manifests in your body. When you think of all of the mental disorders and the illnesses that stem from the mind, it's kind of overwhelming. There is always a connection with anxiety, depression, substance use across the board. And he recognized that 2,600 years ago.
Yeah.
I just find that so amazing.
Oh, I do too. And that it works. And so he was a brilliant man. He described something, and this is, I should qualify, this is in the Abhidhamma, which is not a book of the suttas, a book from the Pali Canon that I teach from often. But in there, the Buddha talks about something he called kalapas, and he described them as infinitesimal particles of energy that come into existence and blink out of existence, millions of them, in the blink of an eye. Well, he's describing something 2,600 years ago that physicists are just now able to describe. so again, and he did this without any type of instruments or anything to measure anything, just observing life. But so and what he's describing in those kalapas is impermanence, isn't it? The basic, and again, physicists and actually quantum physicists and quantum mechanics are starting to prove this, that the basic underlying substance of physical life is like that. Just like that. And so why will we hold on to something that can't be held on to, meaning permanence? Nothing can be. And when we understand that at its most profound level, we are simply at peace with life as life occurs, because we understand that's what life is. It occurs. Sickness, aging, and death. Not getting what we want, getting what we don't want. And then again, that I'm describing how the Buddha described dukkha. And then that last part of it is the 5 clinging aggregates that the Buddha uses to describe a self that's rooted in ignorance and that is prone to constant discontent. And to take that all, to turn that back on itself, recognize it, it's a process we're doing. It's not something that's being imposed on us. It's not from past life experiences. It's not from anything. It's not from a lack of merit. It's not because we're not good people. It simply means we don't know how to think. Nobody taught us, but the Buddha did. Thank you. Tim, good to see you.
Good to see you.
I'm glad you're here today. Mary, good to see you. How are you?
Good to see you and good to see everybody. It's a very simple sutta. I think the experience of the Dhamma is anticlimactic. You know, it's neither high drama nor great happiness. It's contentment.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that can be hard to deal with, right?
Yeah.
You want to be extremely joyful or extremely upset about something, right? Yeah. But it really is living it in an integrated fashion. Off the cushion is, you know, maybe to use the roofing metaphor, you know, something we take for granted, you know, that we have a good roof and we don't have to think about it. It just is there and it's part of our life. Hopefully everybody has a good roof. And I think the Dhamma is like that too, that if eventually, and we were talking about it this morning, eventually your practice is just there. And you're just there. And you're not there reacting to everything in the world. So just trying to string a whole lot of those moments together.
Yeah, that's the secret, isn't it?
Right? Trying not to interrupt it with the highs and lows. But anyway, very good sutta. So thank you, John.
Yeah, thank you. And what you said was similar to what Lorna was saying, and that what we're really doing is taking refuge as it's described. And I know you've heard me say this. The Eightfold Path provides a way for me to live in the world without second guessing myself and the world around me. Meaning, am I doing it right? Am I being a good person? Did I do this? I know if I'm living within the framework of the Eightfold Path, I don't have to think beyond that. I don't have to have a self-referential thought. The Eightfold Path provides the ongoing guidance and direction. I should say it provides all the ongoing guidance and direction that any human being needs. And because anything outside of that is seen as a fabrication, prone to discontent, prone to distraction. And so we really are taking refuge and gaining true protection in a way that nothing else offers. As far as, and I should qualify that, as far as I've discovered and learned about the Eightfold Path, I haven't come across anything else that addresses humanity the way this does, in this focus. Thank you. David, good to see you this morning. I'm glad you're here. Amy, good morning. Good to see you again.
I struggle because I'm just having a lot of grief about the climate crisis, people hurting each other in the world, and so I don't really know how to accept that.
Thank you. And I didn't mean, were you finished?
Yes.
I thank you for bringing it up. It's something that we talk about often here in relation to the Dhamma. So what you're describing is something that's currently occurring, that many people are rightfully concerned about. But there's a difference between being aware of something that is an aspect of dukkha and insisting that it be different right now. That's an aspect of losing our minds, rather than being aware of it and taking mindful steps as an individual to change that. And it's kind of a lot of words, but as immediate and as awful as things seem right now in the world, we are way, as a society, as a world society, we are way too focused on what's wrong. Because the things that we are so focused on right now, that we think that the world is coming to an end, have been problems that have been around since the beginning. And again, without getting into any political talk here, even if the situations in the situation in the world is so extreme now, more so than it's ever been, and I can tell you from within my own life that's not true, but for the sake of argument, we're on the verge of blowing ourselves off the planet or whatever we might be doing. What is still most important is for me to maintain control of my mind and not lose my mind, because in that way, then I can offer a solution, but I'm no longer a part of the problem. So it's right to be concerned about the things of the world. The Buddha was too. Again, the conditions of the world are not much different now than they were 2,600 years ago. And he counseled all the leaders of his time about how to deal with the world. And it wasn't protests, and I'm not against protests, but it wasn't protests. It wasn't to legislate, because he could have done that, to legislate suffering away. That can't be done. He taught a way for people to regain control of their thinking and to live in this world that is prone to great disappointment at times without losing control of our minds. So not to put you on a spot, Amy, but isn't that something that would be valuable even in this world that we live in today?
Absolutely.
That's,
it's hard to remember.
yes. But again, that's why I thank you for bringing that up. That really is the point. And then if we're involved in situations that can have more of a direct effect, that's fine. But what's most important to live in this world or at any point in history, it's to develop a deep, well-concentrated mind and understand how to see things. So the Buddha described 2,600 years ago the condition of the world today. Dukkha occurs. And then in an early sutta, and this is upon his awakening, he says, I looked out on the world, and the world is a flame with what? A flame with the fires of passion. Look at the world. What is wrong with the world? The world is aflame with the fires of passion. Whether it's a passion for gas-guzzling cars, or passion for being the right political party, or passion for anything. Look at what it's done to our world. I hope that helps. And I'm glad you're here. Nick, good to see you.
To be here. You said something, and the unrestrained mind is a mind seeking distraction. The term seeking distraction, as opposed to just being distracted. That's kind of the way I feel. My mind is always looking for something to be worried about.
Yep.
That's what we're trying to do, is keep ourselves from doing that by meditation, and I'm trying. So the term seeking was the one that stuck out of my mind.
Yeah, so you just described that whether you were aware of the seeking, your mind was always going towards distraction, wasn't it? That's seeking distraction, and it's another aspect of a conditioned mind, that it's on autopilot. It's always doing that until we introduce something, meaning a proper meditation practice, to interrupt that process. And it's just like that. Always chasing distraction is so subtle for nearly everyone that you don't realize that's what you're doing until you do something so that you can see it. Again, developing a a microscope, if you will, to see our own distraction. That's what meditation does for us. And then as we start understanding it, we're given the rest of the Eightfold Path to understand it, why it's occurring, meaning we're gaining insight into anatta, into I-making, for the sole reason to abandon it. And again, as we understand ourselves, we're not gaining knowledge that we should hold on to. We're gaining an understanding of the way that we're thinking that we should let go of. And so that idea that we're always seeking distraction, that's a mind rooted in ignorance of the way things are. It's always doing that. So you bring up a subtle but very important point. Thank you. Kevin, good to see you this morning.
It's a really important sutta.
Yeah.
Really, I think like there's that macrocosm of problems of the world, and then there's the microcosm of the problems that we face personally.
Yep.
Personal. Later today, I'm going to visit a friend who's dying of ALS. She's on hospice. I've been worried about going. I think, what can I do? What should I do? There's really nothing I can do. I can't save her. I can't stop it. I don't know when it's going to happen. And that's the way it is for all of us. We're all going to face that. And this really helps. It helps to know that if I can be mindfully present for her in that moment, that's all I can do.
Yeah.
And then in reality, I could pass before she does.
Yep.
So, as I go, I just need to hold that in mind and hold in mind.
Thank you. And it just, when we want a situation, when we're caught up in our views about things should be different, in other words, my friend shouldn't be dying, they shouldn't be suffering, this and that, we can't be present for them, can we? You reminded me, my youngest sister died a little over a year ago from a lower motor neuron disease. And it's just awful. At the end, it affected her mind too. I think it often does that. And so she didn't, she was just out of her mind. But I still remember, seeing her. I knew that she was going to be dead soon. And it was awful. But it was also remarkable to just be mindfully present with this person that I've known. She was younger than me, but I've known all her life. And knowing that this is it. This is all that she's going to get. And it's all that I'm going to get of her. We were really best friends for most of our lives. And I think you can still hear the sadness in my voice, and it's still there. But it was just a remarkable thing to be able to be present with her. And, I like to think that she felt it too. Maybe she didn't. She might have been beyond any kind of real comprehension. But it made that what would have been, I couldn't have imagined going through something like that 30 or 40 years ago and staying present with it. But it made such an awful situation still something that I won't say I cherish it, but it's the right way to categorize it. It was a very meaningful moment in my life, among one of many. So we all have that great opportunity to get past the need for something to be different than it is. And this kind of touches a little bit on what you were talking about, Amy, on a grand scale. The planet, the world is in trouble. And people get in trouble in their lives, meaning things happen to them. But that's part of living on this planet. It's part of having a physical life. And it doesn't mean that we shouldn't do things about them that are realistic, but we should also understand, even as awful as things are today in the world, and maybe let's talk about our country, it's a remarkable time to be present for what's occurring. It really is. If we can get away from how things need to be different right now and understand that life is a process of differences and things will be different. They can't not be. And the more mindful we are as a human society, I think the better it's going to be. Excuse me for getting off a little bit, but thank
John,
you.
could I ask you a question?
Sure.
You said it was a great moment for you. Was it great because you could be there for her to say goodbye?
Yes, it was that simple, but that I could, yes, I should leave it at that, but I won't because I hardly ever do. Yes, because I could be present with her from my own point of view. I wasn't distracted by the awfulness of the situation. It was just, this is the end of my sister's life, which is just what it was. It wasn't anything else.
So if you hadn't had restraint, you would have been distracted.
Yeah, and I remember a time my mother was in this same facility. She didn't die there. She died someplace else. But it was close to that. And I remember, and this was about 25 years ago when I wasn't quite as wonderful as I am now. And I was screaming at everybody. I was yelling at her nurses, at her doctors, and blaming everyone for the condition that she was in. And nobody was to blame, not even her. But that's how my mind needed to blame someone because I couldn't deal with the feelings I was having. Someone had to be responsible, and it couldn't be me because I wasn't capable of being responsible for my own feelings and thoughts.
So Kevin described that restraint allowed him to have that clarity on how to address the situation. Without it, he would have spun into anxiety or sadness.
Self-referential, I don't know what to say, I don't know what to do, or
Yeah.
So I mean that's the practice. He would not have been in a position to show that restraint at the contact.
Yes, that is a practice. And that's why we practice. So we can go to a dying friend and be present with him. Why wouldn't we want to be? Thank you.
And the sadness would be appropriate too.
Absolutely, it's
My
appropriate.
wife is crying the whole time I'm there. They don't know what'll happen, but that moment, contact and what she needs or requests.
Yeah, if you weren't sad, it would mean that you lost control of your mind, wouldn't it? Because that's what's appropriate. But we don't. It's hard for people that haven't been able to experience that level of concentration. Because we're so averse to things like sadness. In fact, we really generally qualify our feelings as either good or bad, and we only want the good ones. The whole range of what feels good, but still we want good, and the whole range of what we classify as bad, we don't want any of that. But it's all gradations of simple feelings, and when we take the I making out of feeling bad or feeling glad, it's just feeling bad or feeling glad. It's just appropriate. We get into trouble when we want those things to be different than they are. We lose our minds over it. Mary, good to see you this morning.
This is very short, sweet, and spells things out. I've always said it all my life. I've always said to people, shit happens.
Yeah.
And but I didn't really take it to heart until I started, working with you. And fortunately, I did before my husband's suicide because it was a big help in accepting it. And instead of always asking why it's happening, it really doesn't make any difference what happened.
Yeah. Thank you. And please just say you'd rather not talk about it. But the sadness has lasted, has lingered.
Sadness will always be there. It's not as overwhelming as it was. I'm able to put it in its place, and move forward.
Yeah. Again, that's just how it should be.
Yeah.
You were able to live your life despite that great sadness.
Yeah.
And I think we should be glad that we can feel the sadness. And I think that's often what we do is we deny that we have a right to feel it, and then we hold it in, and then we have it building and knocking and whatever. And it's just, if you just let it out, it's out. Even
Just feel it.
with the other person, that's you're sharing this moment, and the other person has an opportunity to open up too.
That's right. That's right. What is it that invigorates our life? It's feelings and thoughts. The problem is we get distracted by it. We become addicted to it. We want them to only be one way. When say the feelings invigorate our life, when we allow ourselves to have all those feelings, we allow ourselves to live our life fully without the need for it to be any different, because life is like that, dukkha occurs. The Buddha never said, dukkha is always present, did he? He said that it occurs. It's a consequence of the way we think in relation to the world around us, and it's always changing. But we can settle our minds to a point where no matter what changes, we don't lose our minds over it. We just simply stay present. Becky, good to see you this morning.
Very good to be here, John. I really like the metaphor of this sutta because I always felt, like everyone has said, that the Dhamma is such a refuge. And when your mind is not with you and you are therefore living in the soggy abode, it's really not a pleasant place to be.
Yeah.
And it's so helpful to know that the Dhamma is there for you and you will be able to get back on the path. And when you recognize that you're in the soggy abode, when you've gotten to the point where you can recognize that, then you're fine. You can take refuge in the Dhamma and be fine. Even if it's just over simple stuff that happens every day, not over the world, but it's a great refuge, and it was a great metaphor.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Thank you, Becky. Yeah, and it's easy to bring to mind the Dhamma over big things, or at least hopefully we do that. But it really is the subtle, little mundane things of life that is most important to practice the Dhamma and bring it into those. A friend is dying, or someone brings over a big chocolate cake or something like that. What a great class, great little sutta. I think we're about a week away from starting our series on the 3 marks of existence, maybe 2, but we're getting there. I know I've been threatening to start that about 6 weeks ago, but
Right.
we'll get to it. Let's finish with metta, as we always do. So find your relaxed meditation posture and take a moment to become mindful of your in-breath and your out-breath. And these are the Buddha's words on metta from the Karaniya Metta Sutta. This is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, unburdened with duties and frugal in their ways, peaceful and calm and wise and skillful, not proud or demanding in nature. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove. Wishing, in gladness and in safety, may all beings be at ease. Whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none, the great or the mighty, medium, short, or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born, may all beings be at ease. Let none deceive another or despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another. Even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child, so with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings. Radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upwards to the skies and downwards to the depths, outwards and unbounded, freed from hatred and ill will. Whether standing or walking, seated or lying down, free from drowsiness, one should sustain this recollection. This is said to be the sublime abiding. By not holding to fixed views, the pure-hearted one, having clarity of vision, being freed from all sense desires, is not born again into this world. Thank you all for a wonderful class this morning. Peace.
Thank you.